Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Chronicles. Today, my story is a little bit different. Have you ever thought about what it's like, or maybe you've experienced even yourself? Maybe your story includes the adventure of being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. I think there's something in all of us. I think there's a God design in all of us to want to participate in this life and in this world in a way that matters. Maybe I could say it this way. I think we want to be significant. I think we want to have meaning and purpose and know that, there's more than just the day-to-day routine. There's more than just um, the things that make up our life just on a daily basis just to make it happen. I think that's maybe why a lot of us are inspired to get married, to have children, to build businesses. There's something about that, that's bigger than ourselves. And over the years, the story today is about that kind of adventure. And I use the word adventure because I love adventure. Maybe you're the kind of person that would say I don't necessarily crave or enjoy adventure, the unknown, those kinds of things. And over the years, I have found that a lot of people have assumed that I was involved in missions and specifically short term missions because I love to travel and because I love to experience new places and loved all the unknown and the adventure. And the truth of the matter is, that's not always been easy for me, but I definitely do find value in life in that kind of adventure. So for for you today, maybe the story is a little bit different. But no, over the years, I have found value. My story began with the value of stepping outside of what I knew, stepping outside of my normal, even stepping outside of my comfort zone. Because in so doing, I found something larger than myself. So there's been amazing adventures, and I'm not going to use specific names today, but it's possible there could be people that will watch this that you'll find yourself, in my story today. Not by name, but you'll know this applies to you. So over the years, I've found great joy in inspiring people to step out of the unknown, to step into, maybe something that is uncomfortable, something that causes them to lean into the adventure, to lean into, yes, the unknown and the uncomfortable, because therein lies amazing adventures and growth and so forth. And in Matthew 28, this has always been very inspiring to me, but excuse me, towards the end of the chapter, I'm going to start here in verse 18. It says, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth." So, as a young man, this was, and it's still to this day, is inspiring to me because this is Jesus saying that all authority had been given to him in heaven and on earth. And then he goes on to say, "Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." This inspired me because, yes, it asks, it requires in some ways action on our part, but not in our own ability. All authority has been given to me, Jesus says, and therefore go. So this message right here is something that I have endeavored to inspire in people. I've endeavored to live it and walk it, but also to inspire it in people. So the first part of this story today is, I remember one of our leaders, and I'm pretty sure I've referenced this person before, but and in fact, we tried to do this with all of our leaders, but this really showed the example of it. We had a leader who made some mistakes, a leader who didn't do everything perfect, a leader who, let's be honest, screwed up. And in so doing, created some challenges for themselves, but also for those that they were leading, and also for us as an organization. And in the end, it was amazing and a beautiful thing, because in the end, they were able to lean into. We as an organization, me as an individual, we were able to lean into, okay, what's the story here? What has happened? Were these mistakes? Now, what can we learn from them? Are we willing to learn? Are we willing to grow? And in this case, that leader was willing to learn, was willing to grow. We as an organization were willing to learn and grow. And it wasn't about perfection, but it was about stepping out into the unknown, the uncomfortable, the place where we don't have the experience. I remember a young man who I watched intently as we journeyed on our short-term mission trip, and I watched him face the challenges of getting up on stage. Because a lot of our mission trips did provide that opportunity, that adventure, that challenge to step onto stage. And I watched this particular young man be asked to share his testimony, to get personal, to get real, to get vulnerable. And in so doing, that's risky, that's challenging. There's adventure in that, and yet it can be difficult. And I watched him struggle, and I watched him actually not do very good at it. Right? You get in front of people, and I remember one instance in particular where he got up and he shared some things. He was really endeavoring to share his heart and to be a blessing to people, right? I mean, that was the goal. That was the end. He was following Matthew 28, and he was with me in a foreign land and in a foreign culture and in front of people he did not know. And he's asked to share of himself and to be vulnerable in front of these people. And he shared some things, and I pulled him aside later and I said, okay, well, let's talk about what you shared. And in so doing, I pointed out how some of what he shared was actually not necessarily solid theology, solid thinking. And we talked about it, and we kicked it back and forth, and we looked at scriptures. And in the end, he learned, and he grew, and maturity came. And it was beautiful. I mean, that's what this life can be about, right? The adventure of learning, the adventure of following something so significant as this Great Commission that's outlined here in Matthew 28, following other scriptures that give us amazing encouragement to step out into the unknown, to step into the difficult, to step in, but not to do it on our own. Just like we see here in Matthew 28, we're asked to go into all the world, but we're not asked to do it on our own. We're asked to do it in Jesus' strength, Jesus' authority, not our own. We're also not asked to do everything perfect. Just as this young man screwed up, just as our leader made mistakes. It's all right. You learn, you grow. The problem is if you get stuck there, right? The problem is if you stay right there. And that's where we don't want to be. I remember another instance where we were, again, on a mission adventure, a mission journey, again, in a foreign land, in a foreign culture, in places where there's things that are unknown and things that we do not understand. So have you ever heard of the idea that maybe in one culture, something means one thing, in another, it means something else, right? How many times over the years did we bump into times when we would say things or people in other cultures would say things and we weren't understanding? And I don't mean to be offensive with this one, but it's got a good sense of humor in it. We were in in fact, we're in England in this case, and a gentleman got onto our minivan, our little bus that we were traveling around in, and he got on and he asked us, he said, "Did anybody take my fags?" And we're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" I mean, we know what we thought a fag was, right? Not trying to be vulgar here or demeaning or anything, but we're like, no, we didn't take your fag. We had no idea what he meant. We only knew what we thought he meant, right? And so then there was an adventure that unfolded as we endeavored to communicate in a land where we have a common language, but boy, the interpretations aren't the same. In England, we also ran into things like one of our team members was asking, "Where do I throw my trash?" And they're like, "Trash? What's trash? What do you mean?" Oh, and eventually, they navigate through it. And this person in England says, "You mean the rubbish bin?" Like, oh, I would never think to call it. It's a trash can, right? It's not a rubbish bin, right? Man, there are cultures where people talk about just, oh, the toilet is over there, and to us as Americans, we would call it a restroom or a bathroom. We would not typically say going to the toilet. It sounds vulgar to us. But man, my point is, it's an amazing adventure. And you don't have to go to a foreign culture for this. You can, but it's an amazing adventure in life to step into the unknown. Um, I personally remember a moment where, in fact, multiple times have I bumped into moments where I was asked to step into things that were challenging and difficult. One that comes to mind right now is when I first was, and it actually happened many times after this, but when I was first presented with the opportunity to drive a vehicle in a foreign land. It's a crazy experience because you don't necessarily know the customs and the rules and the laws and the way they do things. So I would bump into trying to drive the way I'm used to, maybe here in the United States, and learn real quickly that, oh, that's not how they do it here. And it's fascinating to learn and to grow, but it can be unnerving. It can be dangerous even at times when you're not sure what is going on. I remember once in China when we were needing to move rather quickly and we were endeavoring to cross a border from mainland China into Hong Kong, and we were wanting to do it that evening. And we were being challenged with vehicle problems, and of all things, not that this hindered us all that much, but it began to rain rather heavily, and that just complicated it or made it feel different, right? Made it feel less secure and dangerous. Have you ever been driving and it's dry and everything, and all of a sudden it starts raining, right? And all of a sudden there's glare and possibility of the roads being a bit more slick or something if there's lots of water on the road and so forth, and those unknowns, those dangerous moments. But they bring value to our lives because they allow growth. They allow us to mature. The young man that I mentioned, he learned more and more as we did it more and more. He learned how to share of his life and to share his faith and to share biblical concepts and to do it better. That leader that I mentioned that made mistakes, she learned, she grew, she matured. She went on to lead many more teams, mission teams, and do a great job. It's worth stepping into the unknown. It's worth stepping into the difficult. When you travel to foreign countries, there's lots of difficulties that present themselves simply because of the unknown. And that adventure is deep and it's rich and it's meaningful. So, over the years, that was the reason I participated in missions. Did I find value in the adventure? Yeah, I did. Did I find that I enjoyed the adventure? Yeah, a lot of the time, but not always. Sometimes that adventure would push me over the top, would stress me. I remember one year, um, it was a particularly challenging about 6 or 7 weeks because I went on a long mission trip to Asia. And Asia was just more difficult, not only because it was so foreign to me. In a lot of ways, it had lots of joys and so forth to it that I'm so glad I have those memories and those experiences. But just difficult because things were so different, right? I went on a rather long mission trip to Asia, then was only home like 4 or 5 days, and went to Costa Rica. And the Costa Rica trip was only a week or 10 days, but I had just come off this time in Asia. And when I got to Costa Rica, I remember saying to, I don't remember if it was an assistant leader or a co-leader, and there's a difference there. For us, the difference was that a co-leader would be somebody that was trained and that, is a large team, and therefore there were maybe two of us both leading the team together. An assistant leader was somebody that was in training, and sometimes they were well along in their training, so therefore very accomplished. And in this case, I think it was an assistant leader now that I think about it. But here I am coming off this long trip to Asia, and I'm home for a few days, and then I'm off to Costa Rica. And I remember landing in Costa Rica and saying to this assistant leader that was well along in their training, I remember saying, it's not in me. I'm spent. I'm exhausted. And I'm going to put a lot of this over onto you. And you know what? The adventure of that for me was, first of all, being willing to admit this is, I'm at my limit, and I need you to carry more of the load here. It wasn't something I would normally need to do or want to do, for sure. And this leader presented an opportunity, an adventure for them, a challenge for them of stepping up and leaning in. And I wasn't non-existent by any means, but that leader took on more than they ever had, and they did a good job with it. Again, leaned into the adventure, into the challenge. And I think today, as I share this with you, this was a bit more of a teaching than I do sometimes. And I hope you hear in this story, though, that life presents these opportunities, opportunities at adventure, opportunities at challenge, opportunities to lean in to new areas or into areas that maybe we just haven't leaned in that far before. And we find this in our families. We find it in our marriages. We find it in our businesses. We find it in our local churches. We find it in our culture. There's these opportunities to say, well, wait, hold on. This is new, or this is more intense, or this is requiring more of me. And it's easy in those moments to have a tendency to maybe shy away. And I just highly encourage you, don't shy away. Lean into them. In fact, look for them. Look for these moments and these opportunities to step in, to lean in, and to find that opportunity for growth and maturing and learning and so forth. And you're going to find that this comes in many different ways. My wife would tell you that she's learned to do this with food. She used to be very much just I grew up in Kansas and very much a meat and potatoes kind of girl. And now she's certainly more adventurous than I am. And I would have thought myself as adventurous in that arena. But, she'll lean in and try things and do things with food that are definitely way more adventurous than they used to be. And it brings lots of joy to her. So, this can be deep and very heartfelt and spiritual. It also can be just some of the practical things of life, and leaning into that adventure brings value. So I hope that, even though this has been a bit more of a teaching than a story, that you can see the example of, the adventure of going and doing, and the adventure of leaning in even to scriptures like this. Maybe you've never thought about yourself as one that will go, one that will make disciples, one that would baptize people, one that would teach. Maybe you've never thought of yourself in those ways, but you should, because the Bible's very clear that God wants us to be involved in these arenas of life. So lean into the adventures, whether it be with food or whether it be with something much more spiritual, whether it be relational. Lean in. It's good. Hey, listen, thanks for watching. I appreciate being able to share with you. I appreciate being able to tell some stories, and in this case, do a bit more of a teaching along with the stories. So God bless you. Thank you. Have a great week.